Flip to Freedom, episode number 45. Hello again, this is Sean Terry from the Flip to Freedom podcast, and we are on episode number 45. Now, if you are joining us for the very first time, I'd like to welcome you and let you know that I put this podcast together for you to show you exactly how to quit your job, get out of the rat race, fire your boss, and gain freedom by flipping properties in your spare time, even if you have no cash, no credit, and no experience. So what the heck does flipping properties mean? Flipping properties means that you are finding a motivated seller. Now, I can tell you in this market, it's fairly easy. We can target probate, inheritance, absentee investors, divorce, any foreclosure, whatever the situation is. You can find a motivated seller. You simply sign a purchase contract at a certain price. Let's call it $50,000. And then you find a cash buyer that will buy the property for either fix and flip or buy and hold, and let's say it's $60,000. You sign another contract with a cash buyer for $60,000. So what do you have? You have a contract, a piece of paper with a motivated seller for $50,000. You have another contract with a cash buyer for $60,000. You take both of those contracts to a closing agent, and you instruct them to do a double escrow, a simultaneous close, an assignment, whatever it is. I mean, that's basically what it's called, a pass-through closing. Now, what's going to happen is the buyer is going to wire in $60,000 to the closing agent, and of which $10,000 is going to go to you, and the $50,000 is going to go to the seller. Now, the seller is going to be happy because guess what? They didn't have to go through an appraisal. They didn't have to list it. They didn't have to get inspections. They didn't have to fix anything. The buyer is going to be happy because they're going to get a discount, and you're going to be happy because you're going to get the $10,000 differential. Now, you can do this many times over, but the whole premise of this podcast is to show you exactly how to quit your job as fast as humanly possible. Now, you're going to be able to do that by getting 1 year's worth of income in the bank as fast as possible. Now, give me an example. Let's say you make $50,000 a year. The goal is to flip properties in your spare time and get $50,000 of cash in the bank as fast as possible, giving you the option to quit your job. Now, obviously, you don't have to quit your job. That's your choice, of course. But what if you had the option to where you could quit your job because you found another business that could generate income for you on a monthly basis? Now, after you start learning how to flip properties, you get comfortable with real estate. Then it goes out building a property portfolio that generates cash flow every single month. Now, in this particular podcast, I have 44 different episodes that talk about the strategy of exactly how to do what we just talked about, how to negotiate, how to find the sellers, how to find the buyers, how to market the properties, the tools that you need. Well, in this particular episode, we're going to talk about seller financing formula for more profitable deals. So what happens is, I talk to people all across the country, and they're marketing for motivated sellers, and they have a seller that happens to have a loan in place. And it doesn't really work for the traditional wholesale deal, meaning there's not enough equity. But what do you do? How can you structure a deal to turn around and turn that into a profit? So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about what is seller financing and how to structure it. We're going to talk about 4 ways to get the deal done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you like 4 different scenarios. And I'm going to ask you what you would do with it. Because I think that's probably one of the biggest questions I get from working with people is they go, okay, I got a property, it's worth $150, they owe $130, there's a loan in place, and it has a 30-year fixed mortgage, payments are this amount, what do I do? And it's being able to look at the situation and be able to structure the deal to turn that deal into a profit. So I'm going to give you some different scenarios and kind of ask you what you would do with it, and then kind of tell you what I would do with it to be able to structure it to make it into a profitable deal. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk about why this particular seller financing and structuring seller financing is one of the biggest opportunities in our marketplace today. It is a massive opportunity because let's think about it. You know, right now the lending institutions, it is very, very difficult for someone to qualify to get a loan. They have to have good credit, you know, or they have to have, either qualify for FHA for a first-time home buyer. They have to have a significant down payment or, you know, a couple of years tax return. So a lot of people don't fit in that mold. So what if someone wants to buy a house, but they don't fit in that mold? They can't get conventional financing. What do? Are they stuck? Well, no. Well, guess what? You can tee up a property that has an existing loan in place, and they could purchase it with seller financing. And there's ways to structure that for buyers to come in and be able to buy a property and avoid and eliminate the risk. And we'll talk about that. So we're also going to talk about your why. Because in any type of business, whether it be starting a Quiznos, whether it be starting any type of business or becoming an entrepreneur, there has to be a driving why behind it. So I'm going to tell you a little story that back when I was a kid that I think you could relate to, and about having a burning why, and we'll talk about that. All right. So now, for people, I want to thank and give recognition. I like to give recognition to people who actually went into iTunes. They went into the iTunes store, and they searched Flip to Freedom. They searched Sean Terry, whatever it may be, and they found the Flip to Freedom podcast. And what they did is they submitted a review. And so far, I mean, I've got all 5-star reviews. And one of them here came from B. Gaddis 2 on March 26, 2011, 5-star. It said, "This is fantastic stuff. Sean's sincerity and his true desire to help others really comes through. He inspires you to dream of something better and then provides you with information and the tools to take action. I have tried other real estate programs, but none up to now have given me the tools, inspiration to follow through. I hope to be competing with him soon." Laugh out loud. None better. Keep it up. Well, B. Gaddis, number 2, thank you very, very much for going in iTunes, spending your time, and writing that very nice review. And when it comes to competition, you know, it's funny that you said that because people ask me all the time, they go, "Why would you give away all your secrets? Why would you tell people everything what you do and how to negotiate, and how to market, and how to do it? Aren't you gonna build competition?" You know, yeah, I could be building competition, but guess what? You know, there's 2 types of mentality. There's the one that kind of holds everything back and kind of, is kind of have this scarcity mentality, and they kind of hold everything back. And then there's the other type of person that believes, like I do, that there's an abundance in this world, and if whatever you put out will come back to you tenfold. So I try to give out great content, good information, and try to help people the best I can. Now I'm only one person, of course, so I get between Facebook and Twitter and all the emails and stuff. It's very hard to get what I need to get done and also respond, but I try to do the best I can to respond to everybody I can. But also, I do have a family as well, so it is quite difficult. So bear with me if you send me something. I haven't got back to you right away, but I try to the best I possibly can. But when it comes to competing, obviously, yes. I spent 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, and I was paid high school sports and stuff, and I am very competitive, and I want to win, of course. But there are other ways to win by actually helping other people. And I've always heard that the more people you help in this life become successful, the more you'll become successful, and kind of take that philosophy. And that's why I give away such great free content. If you listen to the other episodes, you'll realize that. Now, the next one came from Focus REI. It says, incredibly informational. Sean covers step-by-step everything you need to know about wholesaling, which has crystallized the hazy parts of the transaction. And the best part is he lives in my backyard, so I know it works in my market. Well, let's hook up. I don't know who Focus REI is, but if you're listening, Focus REI, let's hook up because I have tons of buyers looking for deals right now, and they're banging down my door looking for smoking deals, and we need obviously to find more. So if you're in the local market here in Phoenix, contact me and go to flip2freedom.com. I have my phone numbers on there, a voicemail line. Just give me a call. Let's do lunch. Just do coffee. I have a mastermind group that meets here every 2 weeks. You're more than welcome to come, and we can talk about how to go out and fill the need for these buyers that I'm working with, and how to go out and profit from that. So thanks again very much for going into the iTunes and submitting that. If you'd like to learn more about me or the Flip to Freedom podcast, I wrote a 129-page book. It's a comprehensive, detailed blueprint on exactly how to quit your job in 19 weeks or less. It's detailed, 129 pages. I've had people tell me that they've spent over $1,000 for the same material that I give away for free, and literally I leave no stone unturned. So go to flip2freedom.com. That's flip2freedom.com. You'll see a video of me on the front page, and I'll kind of tell you a quick little story of how I got started in the business. But what you can do is go there. There'll be a place where you can enter your email, and I will send you a link where you can download this report for free, and I know you'll absolutely love it. All right, enough of the chitter-chatter. Let's get into this. Now, what we're going to do is talk about 4 ways to structure deals using seller financing. And what I'm going to do is give you a couple different scenarios, and then we can kind of break them down. And we can talk through them together on what we do. Because, see, one thing, when you're marketing for motivated sellers, you're going to get tons of different type of scenarios that come in. And if you kind of understand what the exit is, then you can structure the deal correctly. Okay? Once you understand the exit on the property, of how you're going to exit it and exit it quickly and what is selling quick in your particular market, then you can structure the front end of it very easily, knowing how you're going to exit the property. So the first thing I do when I get a lead that comes in, first thing I'm thinking is wholesale. How can I wholesale? Is there enough equity for me to structure the deal to wholesale it so a person can come in and buy the property with significant equity? And I can tell you, I did a survey to my buyers list recently, and the number one buying decision, number one thing for them to make a buying decision was equity. How much equity they had in the property. The more the equity, the quicker they could make a decision and get the deal done. So that's exactly what I target first. Does the property have enough equity? I'll show you how to do that. And then after that, it becomes how can I structure it to make it very sellable in the marketplace. Okay, let's talk about scenario number 1, and then we'll kind of walk through it together. All right, so let's say scenario number 1 here. It says the property is worth $150,000. The seller owes $105,000 on a 30-year fixed mortgage at 5.75% interest. Let's say the payment is $650,000, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Seller wants $10,000. So what do you do? Now, what happens is you're going to be marketing. There's all these, if you listen to the other previous episodes, I talk about how to find motivated sellers, how to market for motivated sellers. But you know what? I don't deal with REOs. I don't deal with courthouse properties. I don't deal with short sales. Not saying that those are bad, but with marketing for motivated sellers, you have a lot more options to structure deals that will work. With REOs, it's pretty much one deal. You got to get it at a below market price, and you got to sell it quickly for cash. Same with short sales. Same with properties down at the courthouse steps. Now, there's risk involved in those. Obviously, if you're buying at the courthouse steps, you have cash on the dime within 24 hours. Short sales, there's a lengthy time process to be able to go through that. Could be upwards of 6 months. And then REOs, you've got, you have to tie it up, and then you have earnest money at risk, where typically when I tie up a property, 99.9% of the time, I never use earnest money, just maybe, a non-significant earnest money, maybe like $10 to be able to tie up a property to make the contract legal. But the bottom line is that when you're marketing for these motivated sellers, you have options. Okay. Now let's talk about this one. So we have $150,000. $105,000 is the loan, right? And then $650, and then they want $10,000. So first off, the first thing I'm going to do when I look at this is I'm going to do the formula. And this is the formula for the wholesale deal that I typically do. You basically take the after repair value, ARV, times that by 70%. Okay, so let's take the 150,000 times 0.70 equals 105,000. Okay, and then we're going to take that and and then we're going to do less repairs. Okay, so now we're marketing for this motivated seller. Sellers call in. We're gathering information on a lead sheet. Now, the information we're going to gather is what we talked about: the loan amount, that interest rate, the payments, how much money you're looking to get for the property, and also you're going to get the repairs. What type of repairs are needed? And you do that by saying, hey, what type of condition is the roof? What type of condition is the heating and cooling system? What type of condition is electric and the plumbing, the big ticket items? When was the last time the property was updated? So you're trying to figure out what the repairs are. So what you do is you write that down, and try to get a ballpark number from the seller. So if they give you a ballpark number and they say the ballpark number is 10 to 15,000, then obviously use the higher number, 15,000, because it always seems like it ends up being a little bit more. So what you do is, for the formula, you take the ARV 150,000 times 70%. Right? Less repairs. So let's call it $15,000 minus $15,000 is $90,000. 70% of 150 is 105. 105 minus 15,000 in repairs is $90,000. So that's $90,000 of what I could sell the property for. Now, if I want to make a profit, well, I'm going to first off take $10,000 off the top, and now I'm going to have to sign the contract with the seller for $80,000. So in turn, I can turn around and sell it for $90,000. Are you following the logic on this? So so that's basically the logic I'm thinking. Now, I'm looking at it, and guess what? $80,000. I have to get the thing for to make $10,000. Well, they owe 105. What are you going to do? Is that a dead deal? Do you pass on that deal? Do you not do anything with it? What would you do with that deal? Think about it for a second. What would you do with that deal? All right. Enough waiting. I'll tell you what I'll do with the deal. All right. So this is what I would do with the deal. Obviously, I go look at the house. The two negotiating points in this situation is you want to negotiate the least amount of down possible and the longest amount of term possible. Okay, those are the two negotiating points. So I would go meet with the seller. Right, I would go look at the house and walk through and kind of figure out what the property needs for work and try to figure out estimated repairs. And it's a quick and dirty way, just for your FYI, to estimate repairs. You take the square footage of the property times $8 to $10 a square foot. Right, you multiply the square footage times $8 to $10, and that will give you a rough estimate. If it's $8, then it probably just needs updating. If it's $10, then a place needs a bunch of work to it. It might need appliances and stuff like that. So $8 to $10. If it's really trashed, you might want to go, 10 to 12 or $15. Depends. But that's a quick and dirty way to estimate repairs. But what you're going to do is now you're going to meet with the seller. You're going to walk the property. You're going to build rapport with the seller, and you're going to talk to them because they already told you they want $10,000. All right. So now what you're doing is you're trying to find an angle to be able to negotiate that $10,000 down. So how do you do that? Well, first off, you got to find out what do they want to use the $10,000 for. Right. Well, they want to use the $10,000 for whatever. It could be for moving. It could be for just to pay off some credit card bills. It could be for whatever. But what I would do in this scenario is if $150,000 is the after repair value, after the house is completely and fully fixed up, in today's market, I'm talking maybe granite countertops, maybe brand new flooring, paint, new roof, new AC and heating system. I mean, completely new everything. So a buyer could walk in there and a house would be in excellent condition. Well, obviously the property is not in that condition. So what I would do is I would find properties within a similar square footage that are currently on the market, right, that are in the similar condition as the subject property, that are maybe same size lot, same size in the neighborhood. And what you're going to find is you're going to find properties that are similar, probably down to the 115, 120, 110 type of price range. And what you're going to do is use those as your comparable sales, because the property is obviously not fixed up, right? It's and the property is actually in the same condition as some of these other properties. Well, think about it. If this seller was going to go out and try to list the property, and let's call, remember, she owes 105 and she wants 10, so she wants 115, and let's say that theoretically the comparable sales for like property is 115,000. Well, if she's going to list the property for $115,000, guess what? She's going to have to pay 6% realtor fees. We got Sally Seller we're talking about. We talk about 6% realtor fees, and more than likely she's not going to get an offer at full market value in the condition it's in, because the market is right about between 90 and 95% of the actual list price the offers come in at. So she's going to drop 5% right there. That's 11% right off the top. Then you got 2% for closing costs. Then you got fix-up costs. You might have to fix up the property to get it financeable, right? So if you back that out, guess what? You're going to be under the $105,000 range, right? You talk about all those percentages. Roughly comes out to be anywhere from 10 to 15%. Well, if you take $115,000, I got my trusty calculator out here. 115,000. Times, let's say 15% fee rate, that's $17,250 right off the top. So 115,000 minus 17,000, okay, we get about $97,000. So once you explain this to Sally the seller and say, hey, listen, by the time you back out these fees, and if you market the property like it is, and because your property is similar to these other properties on the market for, let's say, 115, well, you're going to be at $97,000, Sally seller. Are you willing to come to the table with the extra cash, roughly what, $7,000, $8,000? To be able to get this deal done? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, no way, there's no way I'm going to come to the table. Absolutely not. So what you can do is then show them the option. Well, what else do you want to do? Are you just going to let it go to foreclosure? And they're going to say, no, I'm not going to let it go to foreclosure. I don't want to do that. Well, would you like to rent the property? Oh, no, I wouldn't like to rent the property. I wouldn't want to do that either. So you're kind of taking these through these different scenarios, and then you go, okay, well, listen, what if we structured something, okay, where you could actually keep the loan in place, but instead of giving you $10,000, and instead of you having to come out of pocket and letting it go to foreclosure and renting the property, we could give you, say, $5,000. Would that work for you, Sally? Oh yeah, how could we do that? That'd be interesting. And what you did is you kind of walked her down the path of these other options that she potentially would be faced with if she was going to try to market the property in the open market. But now you can show her a way where she could keep the existing loan in place and also get $5,000. So that's a way to negotiate that 10 down to the 5. Okay. So now what you're going to do is now you have 3 different options to structure this particular deal. Okay. Now the first option is where you do what's called a subject to, and you buy the property subject to the existing loan. Okay. Now when you're buying the property subject to the existing loan stays in place, you're going to wrap that existing loan. Okay, and the title will transfer. That's what happens on a subject to. Title will transfer to to the buyer, right? Because remember, you're just signing a contract with the seller. So basically, the deed is going to transfer to the new buyer. Okay. Now I can tell you there is a risk of a due on sale clause. There could be a due on sale clause. Most mortgage notes say that if title transfers without paying off the note, that they could potentially do a due on sale clause. Okay. So there is that risk. Now what happens for me is that I don't flip subject twos. I don't do it. I only buy subject. If I'm going to buy and hold this property, if I want to keep the property in my inventory, then I would do a subject to, because I'm the one that's only exposed to that risk, and then I would be okay with that risk, I guess you could say. That's not something that I would flip to another buyer and put a buyer in harm's way of that potential risk, even though the risk is extremely low, because a lot of banks, I mean, think about it right now. If someone's paying the mortgage, they're not going to do a due on sale clause on the property and try to take the property back when they have the other 50 billion foreclosures in the country that they're working on right now. So the risk is extremely low, but still there is a risk. So how do you eliminate that risk? Well, what you do is you flip, which is the next one, is agreement for sale, or what's called a land contract. Okay. Now, what happens with a land contract is that you still wrap the existing note. You wrap it. You do an exact wrap of the existing note, meaning that the interest rate will still be 5.75. It'd still be a 30-year fixed. Payments would be $650 a month, and then you give the seller $5,000, right? So what happens now is you're wrapping the existing loan, but on a land contract or an agreement for sale, title does not transfer. Only fee title transfers, meaning that you, actually your buyer that you're going to flip it to, has the ability to write off the interest payments on their taxes, but the title actually doesn't transfer. So then there is no risk of a due on sale clause, and you don't need any further paperwork or signatures from the seller, meaning they're going to hold the deed in title. Okay, and then once the underlying note is paid off, the $105,000 paid off, for whatever term is agreed upon, then the actual title will transfer, and the buyer becomes the owner of the property at that time. So now the seller can't encumber the property. They can't go out and get any more loans on the property. They can't resell the property. The agreement for sale will actually cloud title and put you in a position and protect the buyer, and also protect the seller as well. Now, in a typical, if the title does transfer, right, in a subject to, for the seller to be able to get the property back in the event of a default, they would have to go through a judicial foreclosure process to be able to get the property back. Whereas the agreement for sale, you don't have to go through that. It's literally just a default. They put the buyer in default, and then depending on the amount of down payment they have, the percentage of equity they have, will determine how fast that the seller could gain back their property. Now, if this is a little too far over your head, that's okay. I get it. It's really not that hard, but it's a very, very effective way to be able to do it. Be able to structure deals like that. Now, rule of thumb: I flip agreement for sales in land contracts, and I buy and hold for myself subject tos. Now, I told you there's three. There's the third one, whereas the seller completely doesn't understand. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't get it. It's over their head. They don't understand it. And then what you could do then is what's called a lease with an option to purchase. You could sign a lease with them for a certain price, right? And a purchase contract for a certain price. So in this particular deal, what I would do is I would have $105,000, and I can give you a couple different scenarios, but what I'm going to do is $105,000, give her $5,000, in it for $110, okay? And there's a $575 and a $650 a month payment PITI. Now I'm going to turn around and sell that for $16,000 down. I'm going to put it out to the market at $16,000 down, right? And let me see. So she wanted 10, we gave her 5, right? Yeah, so I'm going to do it for $16,000 down and on an agreement for sale. And I'm going to negotiate the term for 5 years. That's what I would do on this deal. Negotiate the term for 5 years, $16,000 down, take over payments for $650 a month, okay, on an exact wrap. I'd have the title company service it. Now, when you do something like this, now $16,000 down, what would happen? Now I'm going to get a contract from the buyer, and the buyer is going to say $16,000 down, of which $1,000 goes toward closing cost, $10,000 goes to me, and $5,000 goes to the seller. You follow that? $16,000 down. And they're going to buy it with the existing loan in place of $105,000, of which $1,000 goes to closing cost, $10,000 goes to me, $5,000 goes to the seller, right? And now the buyer, what does the buyer have? Now they have a property with equity in it, right? They have a property instant because it's worth $150 if they go in and fix it up, and then they get to pay their payments of $650 a month. They buy it with with $16,000 down. Now you want to make sure that you run, do some sort of background check on them. Make sure that they're not obviously criminal. Make sure that they can afford the payments of $650, meaning that you check their income. So you don't want to put in someone that has no shot of being able to either refinance the property or sell the property at the end of the term. Okay, so that's how I particularly structure this deal. Now I know you have questions, right? Because I can feel them. The question is this. Okay, what if the buyer defaults? What happens if the buyer defaults? Well, what's going to happen is the property, since you're doing an agreement for sale, the title company that services the loan, you want to make sure you have a title company service the loan, is they're going to send out a default letter to the buyer, and the buyer has to cure within a certain period of time. And depending on how much equity that they have in the property, how much down payment they put in, and then if they do not cure, then the agreement for sale becomes null and void, and the property would revert back to the seller. Okay, so if there's an event of a default, that's what would happen. It's very easy for the seller to get the property back in the event of a default. Now, if the buyer's in default and they don't make the payments, well, guess what? It's almost like an eviction. You know what I mean? It's like they obviously they shouldn't be allowed in the property. Now, the thing is that the more equity they have in the property, the longer the default period is. Okay, so if they have a significant amount of equity in the property, and obviously you're going to have to check with your state and your state laws and stuff like that, and see exactly what that is, and talk to an attorney and all the disclaimer stuff. But the bottom line is this: is that depending on how much equity they have, will determine how quickly they can be exited from the property on the event of a default. Okay, that's question number one that I get all the time. Question number two was what happens at the end of the term, at the end of the 5 years on this particular deal. Now the seller, the buyer has a couple of different options. They can refinance the property and pay off that existing $105,000 loan. They could sell the property at that time. They could pay it off cash if they want, $105,000, or they can renegotiate with the seller at that time. That's basically the only options that they have. They made a commitment that they would, by the end of the 5 years, that they would have that $105,000 loan paid off, part of the agreement. That's the agreement for sale. That's what you agree to do. Now, if they can't do that for some reason, then the only other option is renegotiate with the seller. If the seller won't renegotiate and they can't pay it off, they can't refinance it, they can't sell it, then it's just like anything. It's just like if you go buy a car and you agreed on a let's say if you lease a car and you have a balloon at the end, and if you can't pay it off at the end, well, guess what? You just don't get to keep the car. You have to renegotiate. You have to do something to be able to get that car either paid off or in a better financial situation. So that is the option. Now, that's why you want to structure it, at least 5 years out, 3 to 5 years out, so it gives someone time to be able to either restore their credit, to do a refinance, to be able to have the market recoup so they can turn around and sell it, or they can save up enough cash or whatever the case may be to get that paid off. Okay, so you have to make sure the buyer understands that completely, and it's disclosed completely on the when you're selling the property. So now, let me back up. I know I just gave you a ton of information, and if your mind's glazing over and your brain's going with that, don't worry about it. The bottom line is this: is that go back to the basics. $150,000 house, $105,000 loan, 5.75 interest, $650. Right? So you're going to structure it to where you keep the loan in place, $105,000 for 5 years. You renegotiate with the seller. They gave them instead of $10,000, give them $5,000, right? And then you sign the contract. That's all you did. You signed a contract with them, and The seller agreed to convey title via an agreement for sale on an exact wrap of the existing loan for the term of 5 years. That's what you put in your contract. Okay, make sure you check with your attorney before you sign anything. Now the next thing is now you sign a contract with a buyer, right? And the buyer comes in and says, okay, I agree to put $16,000 down. I agree to buy the property via an agreement for sale. I agree to accept the exact wrap of the $105,000 and make payments for $650 a month. I agree to do that. So now you have a contract with a buyer, with a seller, for that, what we just talked about, and you have a contract with a buyer. You bring both those to the title company, just like we talked about in the beginning, and you instruct them to do an assignment or a double escrow, a simultaneous close. And you can simultaneous close agreements for sales. I do it all the time. You can do it. You can do assignments. I do that all the time. It just depends. So now what's going to happen is the buyer is going to bring in $16,000. Now, what happens with the $16,000? $1,000 goes toward closing cost. Now there's $10,000 left over. Okay, $15,000 left over. $5,000 goes to the seller, right? Because that's what you agreed upon in your contract. $10,000 goes to you for structuring the deal and putting it together. So now the buyer gets a property with seller financing in place. They didn't have to go through a big blown out credit check and all that type of stuff, and you have to put them through this whole, rigmarole of trying to get the, to get financing, right? You didn't even have to get an appraisal on the property if the buyer didn't want to. So now the buyer gets a property. They get to move into the property, $16,000 down, and you can close these things in a week. You don't have to go through this whole financing process. You can get them done fast, very fast. Okay, so now the buyer gets a house. They're excited. They're in the property. They got the thing locked up for 5 years. The seller's happy because they now didn't have to come out of pocket to get out of the deal, and they actually walked away with $5,000. So guess what? The seller's happy, the buyer's happy, and for you, putting the deal together, you make $10,000. Now, do that 10 times. In the next 6 months, and you'll make, you'll make $100,000, in the next 6 months. And I'm telling you, that's not that hard. It's really not that hard. These are such easy deals to put together. Now, that was scenario 1. I've got a couple more here, so I kind of went off on that one. But all right, so let's talk about scenario 2. But do you understand that? Do you understand scenario 1, right? Of how we structured the deal. So what's the exit? The exit, I know on this particular exit that if I can keep the down payment and there's enough equity there, right? If there's enough equity there, I can keep the down payment to, fairly low. Let's say in this particular deal that the rental payments for the area are say like $800, and so now someone can get in this house for $650 a month. Well, guess what? They're below the rental comps in the particular area, which is good. And then they can get in the property and they can own it. They could write off the taxes write off the interest payments on their taxes. Now they have ownership of the property, which is great via an agreement for sale. Okay, you have all the benefits of ownership, which are great. You don't need any more signatures from the seller. They're done as soon as they pay off that underlying loan. The title will transfer. Now, they will cloud the title, meaning the agreement for sale will be on title, meaning the seller can't sell it or get a loan on it or do anything else with the property. The buyer has control of it. All right? That's why I like agreement for sale so much. Scenario 2. Let's talk about the property is worth $250,000. The seller owes $242,000. The seller has a 30-year interest at 6% ITI, interest and taxes insurance, not PITI. Which is principal interest tax insurance. Payment of $1,400 a month. Seller needs some cash to move, and what would you do? Okay, so would you pass on this deal? What would you do? Okay, you got $250,000 house. Now let's say the house is in great condition. It's good. You walk in, man, the place is great. You look at it, it has vaulted ceilings. It's real nice. They keep it clean. $250,000, they owe $242,000, so there's literally $8,000 of equity in the deal. What do? Do you pass? All right, well, first off, we look, can we wholesale this property? No, can't wholesale this property, not enough equity in it, right? So what this is a potential retail deal. So a couple things I'm going to look at. First off, they have to have a good loan in place, meaning they have to have a 30-year fixed or a loan that you can wrap. Okay, a loan that you're able to keep in place and you can wrap. What loans can't you wrap? Well, you can't wrap reverse mortgages. Okay, and you can't wrap mortgages that are these option arm mortgages where they're called negative amortization loans, negams. You can't wrap those loans. I don't wrap those loans. So can't wrap those couple different type of loans. I'm sure there's other loans you can't wrap. I just never ran into it. But make sure they have a good loan, 30-year fixed, and you're going to wrap this loan. Okay. And let's say they have a 6% interest. ITI, interest, taxes, and insurance payments of $1,400. Seller needs a little bit of cash to move. What do you do? Well, first off, you're going to look at, okay, one is the condition good. And we determine that the property is in good condition. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the $1,400 a month and see if that is comparable to the rents. Okay. Now, if everything's renting for $800 a month and you're trying to get $1,400, it's going to be a very difficult property to sell in that market because everything in the market's going for $800, and now they're going to have to pay a super premium at $1,400 a month. Okay, so you look at the market rents. Now, if the market rents are showing $1,400 or higher, that's a good sign. So I would check that. Okay, so now you're checking the loan. Now obviously you got the value of $250, right? The property's in good condition. You check the rents. Then it becomes negotiating with the seller on equity. And what do? I would set up an appointment with a seller in this particular situation. I'd go meet with them. I would walk through the property. I'd look at everything that we talked about. And then what I do is go through the options, right? And what's the options? Well, Mr. Steven Seller, right? Your property's worth, here you got one that sold down the street at $250, one over here that sold for $230, one over here that sold for $245, and one over here that sold for $225. So, Steven Seller, right? What are you going to do? What's your plan? What's your plan if you can't sell the property? Now, it's funny when a lot of people, it's amazing. You go say, hey, listen, if I can't sell it, I'm just going to let the thing go. Now, if they tell you that, well, guess what? That means that's no cash. That's no cash. That means they're getting not a dime. If they just let the thing go, they're going to have a foreclosure on the credit, and they're going to have no cash, right? So if someone tells you that, that's a high motivation level that you could structure a very good deal for yourself on that deal. Or if they go, well, I just hang on to it forever and I just keep it as a rental. Well, if you keep it as a rental, have you ever rented a property before, Mr. Steven Seller? No, I haven't rented a property before. We're moving out of state, and I don't really want to do that. I'd like to just sell the property and be done with it. But if I have to, that's what I'll have to do. Well, obviously if you try to market and list the property right now, let's say you listed it to $250, by the time you pay realtor commissions and closing costs and fees and you get an offer less than asking price, which is typical in the marketplace, and you have to do any type of fix-up on the property, well, guess what? You're going to have to come out of pocket with $10,000 to $15,000. Steven Seller, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to come out of pocket with that type of cash? Well, what's going to happen is that he's going to say, nah, I don't want to come out of pocket with that much cash. 99.9% of the people say, I don't want to come out of pocket with that much cash. So then you're going to say, okay, well, so if you're going to let you potentially let it go to foreclosure, you're going to possibly rent it, you're going to let it go, come out of pocket with cash, or we could do something like this. What if we got you, let's say $1,000, and let's say we're able to structure it to where we could keep your existing loan in place for 5 years. You're protected because title doesn't transfer, right? But you're not obligated to take care of the property. You're not obligated to make the payments. Would that sound interesting to you, Mr. Steven Seller? Oh yeah, tell me more about it. Great. Let's go grab a seat here in the living room here, and I'll kind of explain exactly how it works. So when you're explaining how it works, you're explaining the agreement for sale. Say, Mr. Steven Seller, what's going to happen is we're going to leave your existing loan in place. Now, obviously, Mr. Seller, it's extremely difficult to get loans in this marketplace today. So your asset that you have on the property is you have a good loan in place. You have a loan that's at 6% interest. You have a loan that's a 30-year fixed, and your payments are only $1,400, which is good, which is comparable comparable to the rents in this current market. So what's going to happen is what we're going to do is structure to where we can hold on to the property. We'll take over the property, keep the existing loan in place. We'll give you $1,000 for the term of 5 years. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what happens, Steven Seller, if there's a default. Well, guess what? You're going to get the property back. They're going to send out a default letter. If we don't cure the property, if you don't cure it, or our buyer doesn't cure it, then the property would revert back to you. Now, let's say that happens, say 3 years from now. Well, if the market's in a better financial condition, well, guess what? You could turn around and sell the property and make a profit. If there's no default, then at the end of the 5 years, that note has to be paid off, and then you're done with the property. Guess what? You get a little bit of cash. You don't have a foreclosure on a credit. You get your property. You have to get that off your head, so you don't have to deal with that, and then you can move on and do what you want to do. Now, we have a title company that services it, meaning that we or our buyers would make payments to the mortgage company. To the title company. Title company would then make payments to your bank, and you would get a statement, and we would get a statement every single month of the payments being made. Okay, and that's the way it's structured. Now, this is a win-win for everybody, because then you, in turn, get your mortgage taken care of, and we can get into property without having to come up with $250,000 to be able to make it work. So, Steven Seller, does that sound interesting to you? Now, there's going to be a couple different things. They're going to say, well, let me think about it. Okay, so if they want to say, I want to think about it, what do? I say, great, hey, you can think about it. Honestly, I've got like 4 other houses I'm looking to structure similar deals with here this week. I only can structure deals with one of them because obviously I can't take on too many properties myself and too many commitments myself. So why don't you think about it? If I'm still available, if I'm still in the market looking, at this property, then and if I don't get sign up another property, then I would be willing to move forward with yours. Now, if I buy another property and contract another property, then I'll have to put you out 60, 90 days, or just maybe even pass on it. So what's that doing? It's putting a little fear of loss. Okay, you want to think about it? Well, guess what? I've got stuff I got to do too. So while you're thinking about it, guess what? There's potentially a risk, Mr. Steven Seller, that guess what? You might not get the deal. And it's going to put a little fire in their butt. 9 times out of 10, I either A, have them call me back that afternoon, or call me back the next day saying that they want to proceed forward. Okay, so that puts a little fire in their butt. Now, I usually put inside the contract if they say they want to think about it. And I just go through my fear loss scenario that we just talked about. And if they say they want to think about it, I usually put a deadline. I say, listen, I need an answer to this within 24 hours. Or I'm going to have to move on to other properties. So you got till 24 hours to think about it. And that's what typically happens in a contract anyways. Usually when an agent puts in an offer on behalf of their buyer, there's a deadline for them to accept or not accept. So if I'm putting an offer with them, guess what? They're going to have a deadline for them to accept. If they don't accept by that deadline, then guess what? It's open to renegotiation at that time. Okay? So that's what I do. Now, how would I exit out of that property? How do you make money on it? What I would do is I'd give them $1,000, right? I'd wrap the existing loan at 6% ITI, the $1,400 a month. I make sure I check that $1,400 was current to the rental area in the marketplace there. And then what I do is then I'd market it, right, for $11,000, $12,000, $15,000 down. Now, people will pay a premium over comparable market sales because there's seller financing in place. So I'd market it, right, for $15,000 down. So how do you market the property? You can put bandit signs all around the neighborhood. You can put it on Craigslist. You can put it in the newspaper. Seller financing in the newspaper. People will call you like crazy to be able to buy this property. Okay. So now you put in the paper $15,000 down, no hassle. Get in. The property's in excellent condition. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. It's 1,800 square feet. Payments of $1,400 a month. No qual. Give me a call. People will be flooding your phone looking for that. Now, what happens is now that people have this. Now that you have a seller in the house, and then let's say the seller's living there, you got to schedule someone to be able to come and look at the property, right? So what I do is I take a bunch of pictures, tons of different pictures of the property, and I would email those pictures over to my potential buyer. I'd have them look at all the pictures, and I say, listen, obviously I don't want to disturb the tenants for someone to go over and look at the property, and if they're really not highly interested. If you're highly interested in this property, let's write up a contract. Let's meet. Let's write up on a contract on the property, and then I'll get you in, and you can look at the property. And after your inspection, after you look at the property, if you decide to move forward, then we'll open up escrow and we'll get the deal closed and get it done. But I need a proof of funds to make sure you can purchase the property, and let's write the contract, and then we can move forward, and you'll have a day to look at it and check it out and see if you like it. So what that's going to do is going to get them pretty much 80% committed. If I do that with someone, then I know I'm dealing with a serious person that wants to move forward. I have them drive the neighborhood. I have them check out all the pictures. I make sure that they can afford it. I'd write the contract, and then I get them in. Now, if the house is vacant, then I would put it on the lockbox, and then I would go meet them at the property, or send them over to the property, have one of my guys meet them at the property to show them the property and see if they have interest and try to get them signed up right there. So that's exactly what you do in that situation. Now you turn around and sell it, right, for say, like I said, 15,000 down in this particular carryout, or 16,000 down, or even 10,000. You could do it for 11,000 down if you'd like, in that type of scenario. So 1,000 would go to the seller, 10,000 would go to you. Actually, I do it for 12,000. I do it for 1,000 go to the seller, 1,000 for closing costs, and 10,000 for you. And then you can do that. Now you could try to sell it for more than that if you'd like. If the market would bear, you could start higher, 16,000, 17,000 down. 1,000 goes to the seller, $1,000 for closing cost, and 15,000 for you. That's not a bad deal on a property that has no equity. Okay. Now let's talk about scenario 3 here, and I'm going to have to blow through these because we're almost hitting an hour. Okay. All right. So now scenario 3: property is worth $125. Seller owes $65. They have a 30-year fixed at 9% interest. $600 a month, interest, taxes, insurance. Seller wants $10K. What do you do? Okay, now in this particular situation, they have a 9% interest, right? Now let's say the 600 in this particular scenario right here, 600, maybe let's say that's a little bit higher than market, right? A 9% interest is pretty high. In today's market for loans. I mean, a lot of times I see 4%, 5%. I'm doing a deal right now where the loan is 2.875%. 2.875%. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so cheap. So anyways, this one, 9% interest is pretty high. $65,000. They owe $125,000. So first thing, can I wholesale it? Well, you take 125. Cross your calculator out. 125. Oops. 125. 5 times 0.70. Bam, we're at 87,000. Hey, seller owes 65, right? Let's say the thing needs 10,000 repair. Boom, we're at 77,000. I can sell this sucker for, right? So now it's starting to look like a good deal. Even at $600 a month, it's better than hard money. Hard money typically goes from 12 to 18% annual interest for that. So hard money on if someone goes out and gets a hard money loan right here. So how would I structure this deal? Now the seller wants 10,000 down, of course. So now we're at $75,000. So I only have basically a $2,000 spread. So I'm going to have to negotiate now with the seller to make this deal work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the house. Now it's close. Right? It's close. So I'm going to go over the house right now, and I'm going to start negotiating with the buyer. And I'm going to try to find comparable properties in the marketplace, either sold or active, that is close to the 65,000, that is similar square footage, and within a 1 mile of the subject property. Because remember, 125 is, say, all fixed up. So the house still needs to get fixed up. So you can find the lower comparable sales to justify a lower price. Now you want to get that down payment as low as possible. Okay, because we know we want to exit the property. 125 times 0.70 is 87,000. We have to exit the property at 87,000 or lower. Okay, in this particular scenario. Now, and obviously, if it needs $10,000 for the work, we're at 77,000. Now they owe 65. They want 10, so what we're going to have to do is negotiate them down and see if we can make like $5,000. So let's see if we can get the seller down to say $5,000, right? Then we can turn around and make $5,000 and still sell it for 77. But this is the thing: I would negotiate to keep the existing loan of $65,000 in place, and I do that and try to do that for a 3 to 5 year period, okay, to keep that loan in place. And I would say, and I'd go through the whole scenario, I'd show them the comparable sales, going through the different options of what you're going to do with the property, negotiate to get that to get it down to a $5,000 number, and then I negotiate to keep the existing loan in place. Okay. Now, when you do that, you can sell the property for a premium because it's going to eliminate a hard money cost. So you could probably turn around and sell it at like 68% of value. Okay. And I'm talking now, your market may be different, but what happens is you can get a premium for properties that have seller financing in place. So let's take it. Let's say 125 times 0.68. So now we're at $85,000 we could potentially sell it for, minus $5,000 to the seller, right? We're at $80,000. If we can tie the thing up for $70,000, there's a $10,000 profit there. Okay, $65,000 plus 5 to him. We're at $70,000. Turn around and sell it for $80,000 with seller financing in place. There is now potential profit there. There's a $10,000 potential profit. Now, could we negotiate off that price? I would start higher because there's seller financing for the buyer. They can come in, they can put their down payment, right? And what are they going to put for a down payment? They're going to buy it for $80,000, right? And there's $65,000 of the loan. They're going to come in with $15,000 down. Most of the hard money lenders want 20 to 40% down when they do that. Well, on an $80,000 loan, times 40%, that's $32,000 they're going to have to come down with just to buy the property, and they're going to pay 18% a month, okay, for hard money. So if I can come in and tell them, hey, listen, you can come in with $15,000 down. Instead of paying 18%, you can pay 9%, and you get it locked up. Instead of doing it for 6 months, you can have it for 3 years. Would you be interested? Well, you're going to raise a lot of eyebrows, and you can negotiate from there. Now, not every deal you're going to make $10,000 on, but I always shoot to make $10,000 on every deal. But not every deal you're going to make $10,000. Some deals you're going to make, $3,000. Some deals you're going to make $5,000. Well, guess what? That will cover marketing costs for you if you'd like. All right, so that's what I do. And I turn around and sell that property for $80,000. I give the seller $5,000, and I'd structure to keep that existing loan in place. Now, how would I structure it? I'd structure it on an agreement for sale, just like we talked about. I'd do it to where the title does not transfer. The buyer could buy it. He could turn around and do what he wants to do with it and turn around and sell it, and then be out of the property in 3 to 5 years, whatever he wants to do. Okay? Scenario 4. $60,000. Property's worth $60,000. Seller owes $44,000. Got a 30-year fixed at 4.25%. Got payments of $300 a month. What would you do? See, when I see something like this, what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is ask them, I'm going to figure out what the rental market's in the area. So let's say the rental market in this particular scenario is, let's call it, $800, $900 a month. Okay, $900 a month. So I'm looking at, he has a $300 a month PITI payment. Okay, you get a motivated seller. It's worth about $60,000. They owe $44,000. Right? Then I'm going to do I'm going to look at that. Let's call it $900 a month. Okay. So what's the potential cash flow? Well, 900 minus 300, $600 a month potential cash flow. Okay. So now my eyes are starting to light up. I'm going, oh wow, okay, there's a potential cash flow here. 4.25%, good interest rate. 30-year fixed, good loan. That's good. Seller owes $44,000. That's good. We're $60,000. There's not enough equity for a flip. Right? Because look, we take $60,000. We do our formula times 70% equals $42,000. Let's say it needs minimal repairs. Let's say $3,000 for the repairs. Well, we're at $39,000 is the exit price. He owes $44,000. So the wholesale flip is out of the question, right? But you could potentially get $600 a month cash flow. So I'm going to set an appointment with the seller, right? Now I'm going to go look at the property and check it out. And I find out that the property is in fairly good condition, right? Doesn't need a lot of work. Maybe $1,000 for, paint or whatever, and maybe some, $1,000 for a couple thousand for carpet and paint, but then I could turn around and rent it. So now what's going on in my head, I'm thinking maybe I could keep this in my portfolio. Okay, maybe I could build this in my portfolio. I could keep the $600 a month cash flow. So then my motive becomes to negotiate the absolute minimum cash down possible and make sure that there's minimum repairs possible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is then go negotiate. Let's say he's a motivated seller. He wants out of the property. I could easily potentially show beat up comps on properties that are around, $40,000. He doesn't want to come out of pocket, with deals. So I structure to keep the loan in place. But instead of structuring it for 5 years, I structure it for the term of the note. Okay, for the term of the note. So if there's 25 years left on the note, I'm going to structure for the balance of the note, 25 years. I'm going to do an exact wrap, but with no deadline term. Okay, that means for me, I don't ever have to refinance it. I can hold on to the thing forever, and I can potentially pay the thing off and have just complete cash flow. So, let's say 20 years from now, the thing is renting for $1,500 a month. That could be a $1,500 a month cash flow. I didn't have to go out and get a loan, and I literally could get in the property with little to no money out of pocket. So what's going to happen now? Then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to structure, and let's say he wants $1,500, which is very likely, and I got $2,000 to put in for carpet and paint, or whatever. So now I'm in it for $3,500. I go to closing. I fund the $3,500. I fund it. Comes out of my pocket. I fund it. I pay the $1,000 in closing costs. I'm in it for $4,500. Let's call it $5,000. Make it easy. So now what am I going to do? So now I'm in the deal for $5,000. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and I'm going to market I'm going to get it cleaned up. I'm going to put the carpet, put the paint, get it nice, get it all cleaned out, make sure it smells good, make sure everything works, And then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to lease option the property. I'm going to market it with a lease with an option to buy. And the option is going to be in 18 months, right, for a price. Guess what my price is going to be? A little bit higher than the $60,000. I'm going to do it for like $65,000. 18 months from now, and guess what the payments are going to be? A little bit higher than the $900 premium. I'm going to do it for $1,000 because I'm giving him an option to buy. And what's going to happen is they're going to have to buy it at the 18 months. Now, what happens is this, is 90% of the time on a lease option, the buyer never buys. I don't know why it is. They just don't buy 90% of the time. So I would ask for a option deposit and a non-refundable option deposit on the property, and that non-refundable option deposit would be above and beyond my $5,000. I try to get $8,000, $9,000, $7,000, whatever I can negotiate. So now, how much money do I have out of pocket? None. I get no money out of pocket. I get nothing, because let's say he comes in with $7,000. My $5,000 is now covered. I'm $2,000 in the black, and I'm getting $700 a month cash flow because they're at $1,000 a month. Isn't that brilliant? Right? So, and then I still own the property. I just did a lease option. Now, if they buy it for the $65,000, God bless them. Then I make another profit on the backside. 18 months. If they don't buy it, oh well, they had every opportunity. Now I make sure they're qualified. I try to make sure they're in credit, good. They have good credit. They can get their credit established. I give them every opportunity where they can purchase that property. But statistics show that about 95% don't. So guess what? Then you just continue keeping it in your portfolio, and you redo a lease option on it again for another down payment, option deposit, right? And you do that and collect cash flow on it again and again. Or you could, if you want to keep the $5,000 out of pocket, then you turn around and just rent the property, right? And within 6 or 7 months, you'd be completely, recouped on your cash, and then everything after that is just gravy. But I like to do an option deposit because what happens is now the person that's in the property has more of an ownership. They take care of it better. They don't call you for all the little stupid stuff because they take care of it and set the expectation right up front. And then they turn around and they have an equity interest in it. If they turn around and buy it, God bless them. If they don't, oh well, I still get cash flow every single month. Okay, it's a great way to build a long-term portfolio. Now, I'm going to structure this deal on the subject to. I'm going to take title to the property. I'm not going to do an agreement for sale. I want to take title of the property, and I'll risk the $44,000 due on sale clause because, I've been doing this for a while. My escrow officer has been doing this for 25 years. She has never seen a due on sale. Could it potentially happen? Maybe. Am I saying it's never going to happen? No. But it could happen. But the chances are slim, very slim. Okay? And I'm willing to take that risk. All right. That is it for the 4 scenarios. Hope you got some great information out of it. Now I want to tell you a quick story about, real quick. When I was a kid, I went to a circus, like one of those Barnum and Bailey circuses there. Have you seen those? Like the big circus, and they have all these, clowns running around, and they have festivities, and they have they have like have you ever had that fried dough, and you put maple syrup on it, and it's just like, it's just like the best in the world. It's just awesome. I remember that fried dough, man. I wanted to get like 10 of them. You put the maple syrup on it, you put the powdered sugar on it, man. I got stuff. I think I was like 6 or 7 years old, man. I got stuff dripping all down me, man, because it was good. So and you had the smell of those those events are just heavenly. They're just awesome, unless you run into the elephant cage, which we're going to talk about. But what happened is I remember walking around, and I remember seeing this massive. Now I'm 6. Okay, I remember seeing this massive elephant. The thing was huge. I mean, it was like it towered. It was just, they don't measure the thing in pounds. They measure it in tons. The thing weighs like, 30 tons. I don't know. The thing's massive. And he's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and and I'm looking at this massive elephant, and it has his trunk, and he's eating some hay, and he's putting it in his mouth. I'm just enthralled with how big and massive this animal is. And I'm there with my parents, and I look at this elephant, and I look down, and around the elephant's leg is a rope, and the rope is tied to a little stake. Nothing major, but just a rope and a stake. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's that elephant can get out of here. That's just a little tiny rope and a stake is the only thing that's holding this massive elephant down from going and just, stampeding the entire city and killing everybody. I'm free. I'm sick. I'm having things going through my head. So I asked my dad. I said, "Hey, why is there just a little rope and a stake? How do they train the animal?" He's like, "I don't know. Let's go ask the trainer." So how they have they have the elephants. They had this big fence and stuff like that. That was there, and and the elephants eating his hay and stuff. And walked up, and there was a guy there, and we talked to him. He said, "Hey, how is that little rope and the little stake in the ground holding this elephant back? How is it containing this elephant? Why does the elephant just pull it out of the ground and just run around and stampede everybody?" So the trainer said this, which I thought was interesting, is that when the elephant was a baby, a brand new baby, instead of a rope, they put a chain around the back of his leg. And instead of a stake, they put it to a concrete block that was in the ground, just concrete. There's no way. And for about a month or 2 months, that little baby elephant would yank and pull and yank his leg and try to escape from that massive chain in the concrete block. And he'd pull as hard as he could to try to break out of that chain and try to get out and get free. And then, after a month or 2 months or whatever it is, 3 months of trying, feverishly just trying to break free, he finally stops. And they keep him there a little bit longer, make sure he's, make sure he understands that he's not going anywhere. And from that point forward, they can get rid of the chain and they can put a rope on a stake. And every time the elephant pulls slightly and they feel a tug, they'll stop pulling. They'll stop. They'll just give up and stop pulling. Now, isn't that a lot like you and I? Think about it. We are a elephant size of potential in our lives. We have all this potential to do all these things, to do whatever we want to do. But when we were young, guess what? We were told we had to go to school. And we were told we had to get a job. And we had to have job security. And we had to go follow everybody else. We had to go to school till we're 18 years old. And you're not going to amount to anything if you don't go to college. So then you got to go to college. So then you go to college, and what do you learn in school? You go all these hours, and you learn to be an employee and work for somebody else. And then we go to college. Maybe you did, I didn't. I went in the Marine Corps, but then guess what? Go to college, and then we're there with the masses learning how to fill out a resume to go work for somebody else, to make sure we have a job and make sure we have benefits. We have to have medical benefits and dental benefits and all these benefits and security. And we're younger. We're told. I grew up in a family where money was always an issue, always. We always didn't have enough. Hey, I want to go buy. Yep, can't afford that. Can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't have this. You can't have that. No, we can't do that. Oh, those are for the rich people. Oh, the rich people do that. That's how I grew up. And that was a chain that was locked on my ankle. And every time I tugged, guess what? I got resistance. I wanted to live at full potential. I wanted to live life with no limits. To do whatever I want, when I want, with who I want, to make as much money as I wanted, become as free as I wanted. But no, I was born and raised to have a chain, just like you and I, around our ankles, telling us we can't do it. We're not good enough. We're not like those people. We can't accomplish it. Just go get a great education. And if you get a good education, you can go to a good college. If you go to a good college, then you can get a good job. And then if you get a good job and you keep your head down and you work really hard, then you can retire at the age of 65. You can get a gold watch and a plaque, and you've done it. You've done it. Well, do you realize now the statistics say that the average American changes jobs every 3.5 years, even less than that? So if you're going to change jobs every 3.5 years, how the heck are you ever going to get to the age of 65 with security? There is no security, ladies and gentlemen. There is none. Security is cash in the bank. Period. So we were born and raised with limitations, with a chain around our ankle, telling us we're not good enough, we don't have enough, and we yanked as hard as we could. And guess what? We realized we can't break the chain. We can't unleash our potential. And now we just got a rope and we don't even try. We don't even try. We don't even try to break the chain. We don't even try to break the rope. We don't even try for it because what if we fail? What if we can't do it? What if I don't become successful? What if I try and I send letters out to motivated sellers and I try this whole thing and it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? What if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? I fight with those thoughts just like everybody else does. Especially starting this podcast and doing this website and doing all this stuff. Who wants to listen to me? I'm like, whoa, who wants to listen to me? Just an average guy from, I'm born and raised in Vermont. I grew up, nothing special. Happened to be tripped across this real estate thing. And the thing that makes the difference, that's going to break that chain, that's going to break that mold, is how strong your why is. So what is your why? and I talk to people, I say, okay, what's your why? What's your why? And it can't be, oh, I just want to spend more time with my family. That's a good why, but it's not the why I'm talking about. Or people say, well, what's your why? Well, I want to make an extra, $20,000 this year. That's a good why, but hey, that's not going to break the chain. That's not going to get you to full potential. So what's your why? What keeps you up at night? I want a why that's going to just get you in your stomach turning in a frenzy to break that chain, to live your full potential. What's it going to be? What's your why? I had one guy said his why. He said, first off, he goes, my why is to, I want to quit my job. Okay, great. So he wants to quit his job. He wants to quit his job and be done. I said, well, what is it? What picture it in your head. What would be that? And he goes, if I could go into my boss is such a jerk. If I could go into my boss and I could go into him and I just tell him I quit and walk out of the office. And I walk out of the office and I feel like $1 million. That's why. It's better than, I just want to quit my job. It has emotion behind it. It has motion behind it. You got to have a why that just gets you fired up, that you want to do it. For me, my why was my back was against the wall. I didn't have a choice. I had to do it. See, and if I put you in a situation where you have to do it, you will rise to the occasion. I don't care what your background is, where you came from, who tells you can't, who your family is, who your boss is, whatever you came from, it doesn't matter. If you have a why that's strong enough and you're put in a situation where you have to do something, well, guess what? You're going to do it. You are going to break that chain. And you are going to live life to the full potential with passion, with excitement, with motivation. And guess what? When you wake up on Monday morning, you're going to be, let's go. See, I love work, and I'm not a bazillionaire. I just love what I do. I love inspiring and motivating other people, and I love real estate. It's such a blast doing deals. I love it. I'm sure I love this bit. It's great to be able to do what you want when you want to do it. Anytime you want to do it. And I want you in your life to break that chain. To live your life at full potential. Instead of just living this mundane, boring, repetitive, commute to work, go to work, come home, and the same old stuff. You have more in you than that. I know you do. You know you do. But you got to have a why strong enough to where when you send out your marketing and you talk to motivated sellers and you have buyers that, maybe don't work or whatever, but you turn around and you pursue through it and you make it happen. That's what it's going to take. You at full potential, breaking free with all your potential, everything you've got. That's what life's about. Now, if you'd like to learn more, please go to flip2freedom.com. I wrote a 129-page book to not only take your why, that motivation, that why, and then give you a detailed blueprint, a plan to apply it so you can go out and become successful. Because what would your life be like at full potential? What would you be like with passion, with excitement, with motivation, with just, what would you be like? Feel that, see that, and become that. Until next week, I wish you ultimate success in your real estate investing career. Take care. and God bless.